And now we're going to talk about the Foreign Language and Area Studies Fellowships. These are funds, Title VI funds provided by the U.S. Department of Education. And they're similar to the other programs that Todd was talking about because they give preference to student who wants to do service in government, but they're also have identified other areas of priorities in terms of your career goals, like business and working with the nonprofits. So the purpose of the FLAS is to help students achieve proficiency in what the government has deemed less commonly taught languages. Less commonly taught languages are those that students do not encounter until they're at the college level. For example, Spanish is considered a commonly taught language because students throughout the US, they learn it in school, in primary and secondary school, but when they go to the university level, then there are other foreign language options. For our program here at the University of New Mexico and the region of Latin America, our priorities for the academic year are the Latin American related languages, such as Nahuatl, Portuguese, Quechua, and Yucatec Maya. For the summer FLAS Award, it's open to other less commonly taught languages because most of our students, they either learn those languages or study those languages not at UNM, but at other domestic programs in the US or Latin America. The other condition for the foreign language for FLAS is that it has to be a modern language, not a classical one. So modern means that it's spoken by communities in the region that you're studying. Another component of the fellowship is that students are learning these languages, especially for the academic year, in combination with area or international studies, that is the study of society, economic, history, culture, etc. And so you'll be required to take at least one course each semester that provides you expertise in the area studies along with the languages. So I'm going to talk about two types of FLAS fellowships, the academic year one and the summer one. For the academic year FLAS, it's mostly for coursework. It might be approved for dissertation research or dissertation writing at the graduate level. For graduate students, they receive a stipend of $20,000 for the entire academic year and up to $18,000 in tuition and fees, which also include health insurance. For undergraduate students, they receive $5,000 stipend throughout the academic year and up to $10,000 in tuition and fees. We don't cover the health insurance for undergraduate fellows. And this is an important point. Fellowships are awarded on a one-year basis. So you will receive half of the stipend for the fall term and half of the stipend, the remaining half of the stipend in the spring term. And it's for the academic year, it's a commitment of the academic year. If you, for some reason, started the fellowship in the fall and are unable to continue in the spring, then you forfeit the money for the spring. For the summer fellowships, it's both students at the undergraduate and graduate level, they receive the same level of funding. And that's a $3,005 stipend and up to $5,000 in tuition and fees. And depending on the amount we have remaining for the summer competition, we may provide up to $1,000 to support the airfare for you to travel to your language program. And as I mentioned before, you can use the funds to study the language in a domestic or international program. So what is the eligibility for both of these awards? Since these are federal funds, the awards are only open to US citizens, nationals, or permanent residents. It's open to any student at UNM in any discipline who are focusing on the study of Latin America or has a deep interest in the study of Latin America. It's open for current or incoming graduate students, and graduate students proposing to study the language at the beginning level must have advanced level knowledge of another Latin American language. That typically it's Spanish for the region of Latin America. At the undergraduate level, it's the same requirements to be US citizen, national permanent residents. It's also open to any students, UNM student in any discipline. Current UNM student or transfer undergraduate students are eligible to apply, but the only restriction that we have is for undergraduate students is that students must be at least in the intermediate level by the time they begin the award. So you have to have 1 year of the language to be eligible. That doesn't mean that you have before that when you're applying that you need to have completed a whole year. That means that by the end of spring, because for example, the summer or the academic year start after spring, you have to have completed that year. So you have to make those plans before applying. And also for the summer fellowships, those are also open to students from Central New Mexico Community College and New Mexico State University and as well as other minority serving institutions in the US. They're eligible to apply through us for the FLAS funds. Native speakers are not eligible to apply for FLAS. However, if you're a heritage speaker of a language, you are eligible to apply. For example, some of our students, they speak Nahuatl at home, but they've never had any formal training in the language, so they're eligible to apply for FLAS. And also, if you're near native, if you have near native fluency, then you become a lowest priority. Because the purpose of FLAS is really for you to achieve proficiency, especially intermediate and advanced level. So if you don't have any proficiency at all, then if you're an undergraduate student, you cannot apply for it. And if you're a graduate student, then you need to show that you have advanced level knowledge of another language in the region. But when you become too proficient in the language near native levels, then it's less of a priority. So what are the fellowship's requirements for the academic year? You'll be required to take a language course each semester. You'll also be required to take one area studies course of at least 3 credits each semester in fall and spring. You'll also be required to work with your language instructions so that instructor submit a pre and post fellowship language assessment. The pre is done at the beginning of the award, the post is done at the end of the award. So in the beginning of fall for the pre and at the end of the spring for the post. You'll also be required to submit a post-fellowship report, which is submitted directly to the U.S. Department of Education, and that will be done in spring. You'll also be required, the U.S. Department of Education, they do post-graduation career tracking. So by accepting the funds, you are committing yourself to submit, to fill out the online survey that they will send to you every 2 years after you graduate. And it's done 4 times after graduation. So for the summer, the requirements for summers are very, very similar. You need to enroll in an intensive language program. By intensive, we mean that it's equivalent to 1 academic year of language at UNM. The program must meet for a minimum of 6 weeks and needs to have a minimum number of contact hours depending on the level. For beginning intermediate, that's first and second year of the language, is 140 hours. And then for advanced, that's third year or more, it's at least 120 hours. Similarly to the academic year requirement for the fellowship, you will need to work with the instructors so they submit pre and post fellowship proficiency evaluation. You also submit a post fellowship report to the U.S. Department of Education, and you also be filling out those post-graduation career tracking surveys that I talked about before. And again, it's online surveys submitted by the, administered by the U.S. Department of Education every 2 years, 4 times after completing your degree. To apply for this funding, the deadline is on February 26th. You can go to our website under student funding, and you'll find 2 tabs, one for summer FLAS and another one for academic year FLAS. And when you go to those links, it will direct you to an online application form that we have through Qualtrics. And I have the link here. If you email me after the info session, I'll be more than happy to send you the slides so you have access to these links. But you'll need to submit that online application form, also attached to that unofficial transcripts, a copy of your CV or resume. You'll have to submit 2 letters of recommendation from faculty members. Actually, those letters, the faculty members will send directly to us via email, but one of those letters should address the applicant's linguistic skills or ability to learn a foreign language. You'll also be required to submit a 2 to 3 page double-spaced statement of purpose where you are indicating the need for the funds and how the funds will fit within your academic and career goals. You also need to contact the financial aids office here at the University of New Mexico to request a need analysis form to be sent to us. And if you're applying for summer, we'll request a budget from you and the name of the program that you're interested in doing your language studies. And if you are applying for summer, I highly recommend you to start looking for a program since now, starting now, because many of those programs, they have deadlines in early spring, usually February and March. So it's important for you to have already identified a program by the time you submit your application to us. And make sure that they accept you in their program. If you have any problems finding a program, just contact me and I'll be more than happy to help you with that. I would like to talk a little bit about the statement of purpose because this is one of the most important part of the application, as I mentioned, is 2 to 3 pages double space. You have to tell us your intended language of study. You have to also mention the relevance of that language to your academic training and career goals. And also, you have to include information on your current interests or studies pertaining to Latin America. So there should be a genuine need for you to study the language and for you to be interested or already focusing your study in Latin America. As I mentioned, these awards are open to students in any discipline. And sometimes, for example, if you're studying engineering, you don't have an area studies focus, but you can tell us about why Latin America makes sense to you either now or once you graduate. So the interest and the need should be there and should be genuine. And as I mentioned before, in the statement of purpose, if you're a graduate student and you don't have any prior knowledge of the language, you must address in the statement that you have advanced level skills in another language of the region. And you'll also be expected to address the role that the chosen language and program of area studies will play in furthering your academic and professional plans. And if you're applying for summer, we highly encourage you to include your choice of summer program and why. So FLAS has a series of priorities. Some of those priorities are established by the U.S. Department of Education. Other priorities are established by us here in the Latin American and Iberian Institute. When you're evaluated for these fellowships, the overall, the number one priority for us to select candidates is academic merit. We also look into the relevance of studying the language and Latin American studies in your overall academic and career goals. When we have two equally qualified students, we go to financial need and we will provide the funding to the student who demonstrates a higher financial need. And that's why we ask you to contact the Office of Financial Aid for them to send us the need analysis form to us. We give a preference to students in the professional school and STEM fields, and those planning careers in U.S. government service, business, education, and the nonprofit sectors. Yeah, so those are the priorities. Now I will talk about some frequently asked questions. So students typically ask us, if I'm a graduate student, can I simultaneously hold the Title VI FLAS Fellowship and an additional assistantship of fellowship? The answer is yes. We will let you work with the FLAS. You're allowed to work 10 hours per week for a graduate student. If they have a graduate assistantship, that is a 0.25 FTE position. If you need to work more than that, it'll be up to our director, and she'll have to, you'll just submit a request and she'll evaluate the progress you're making or the promise of success that you have, and she'll determine whether she'll approve more hours of work or not. Another question that we receive is, if I receive a Title VI FLAS Fellowship for next year, can I assume that I will receive the award automatically the following year? No. You still have to go through the application process, and you need to submit your application. And we will give low priority to students who have already received 2 or more years of FLAS funding in any given language. Another question that students make to us is, can I accept the academic year Title VI FLAS Fellowship for 1 semester? As I mentioned before, no. The academic year fellowships are for both fall and spring. And if you cannot continue the funding in spring, then you forfeit half of your stipend and fellowship. And lastly, if I need to demonstrate a certain proficiency level to qualify for the fellowship, for example, undergraduate student must be at the intermediate level for the academic year or summer fellowships. Undergraduate and graduate student must generally be at the intermediate level to attend a summer program outside of the US. Must my transcript support my stated proficiency? Ideally, you will have that in your transcript, that you took a year of, let's say, Nahuatl, Portuguese, or Yucatec Maya, or Quechua, and that's the easiest way to prove proficiency. But sometimes you learn the language not in a formal classroom. You can learn it through work, through an internship that you do. That's okay. But you will need to provide the language letter that we require. Will need to address that, and that you have, especially if you're an undergraduate student, at least 1 year of the language. Okay. And as I mentioned before, the deadline to apply is February 26, 2025, not 2024, as the slides say. So, and we must receive all the materials by 11:59 p.m. because at midnight the online portal will close and we won't be able to receive your application. And please talk to your recommenders so they send us the letter by the deadline as well. And if you have any questions regarding the program, the eligibility, and the competition process, please contact me. Here's my email address, lorena@unm.edu. I'm the FLAS coordinator, and I'm here to help you with the application process, or if you have any question regarding fulfilling your requirements. But if you have technical questions, I'm not very good at that, so it's best to send your question to LAII business@unm.edu.